Homeless woman gave billionaire CEO her only dollar. Next day, she woke up in his mansion. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Romance Rewind Stories. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying these heartwarming tales, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. It's quick, it's free, and it's the best way to support us in bringing you more emotional romance stories. And here's something I'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing our amazing community from around the world. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us grow and reach more people who love these kinds of tales. Now, let's get into today's story. Homeless woman gave billionaire CEO her only dollar. Next day, she woke up in his mansion. Winter Ashford had been homeless for 6 months when she saw him. She'd lost everything, her apartment after being laid off from her graphic design job, her savings depleted by medical bills from her mother's final illness, her pride somewhere between the third homeless shelter and sleeping in her car until it was repossessed. At 31, Winter was living in a tent under a highway overpass with $2 to her name. $1 for food, $1 for emergency. The man appeared around 11 p.m. on a Thursday, stumbling through the underpass, clearly drunk or drugged or both. He wore an expensive suit. Even Winter's untrained eye could see it cost more than she'd made in a month at her old job, and he was crying. Actually crying. Loud, wrenching sobs that echoed off the concrete. Winter should have stayed hidden in her tent, should have minded her own business. Homeless people learned quickly that getting involved with others' problems usually made your own worse. But something about his crying, the sheer desperation in it, made her emerge. "Sir, are you okay?" The man looked up, and even in the dim streetlight filtering down, Winter could see he was handsome. Probably late 30s, dark hair disheveled, sharp features softened by tears and whatever substance he'd taken. He laughed bitterly. "I just buried my sister today. My little sister who raised me after our parents died. She was 34, brain aneurysm, gone in seconds. And I got so drunk at her wake that I can't remember where I parked my car or how I got here. So no, I'm not okay. I'm sorry about your sister," Winter said quietly, maintaining distance. "Do you need help getting home? Should I call someone? I don't remember anyone's numbers. Everything's in my phone, which I lost somewhere." He gestured vaguely. "I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and I can't even remember a single phone number without my device." "Pathetic." "You're not pathetic. You're grieving. That makes you human." The man studied her, seeming to really see her for the first time. "You're homeless." "Yes. And you stopped to help me anyway. You were crying. Nobody should cry alone. I'm Maverick Sterling, CEO of Sterling Tech." He said like it should mean something. "Winter Ashford, graphic designer. Currently unemployed and living in a tent. Nice to meet you. You're being sarcastic. I'm being honest. You needed someone to see you're hurting. I get that. I've been there." Maverick pulled out his wallet. Expensive leather, the kind Winter couldn't have afforded even when she was employed. He fumbled with it, drunk and uncoordinated, and pulled out what looked like several $100 bills. "Here, for helping me, for seeing me." "I can't take your money," Winter said automatically, even though she desperately needed it. "You're drunk and grieving. Tomorrow you'll regret this." "I won't regret kindness. Take it. Please, let me do something good today after burying my sister." Winter looked at the money in his shaking hand. Probably $500, maybe more. It would change everything, get her a motel room, real food, a chance to shower and start applying for jobs again. But taking money from a drunk, grieving stranger felt wrong. "I'll make you a deal," Winter said. "Give me your wallet. I'll keep it safe tonight and return it to you tomorrow when you're sober. If you still want to give me money then, I'll consider it. But not tonight. Not like this." "Why?" Because grief makes people do things they regret. And I don't want your help to be something you wish you could take back." Maverick stared at her, then slowly handed over his wallet. "You're either the most honest person I've ever met or the dumbest. Probably both. Where do you live? I'll call you a cab." Winter pulled out her own wallet, a worn thing held together with duct tape, and extracted her last dollar. "This should be enough for the payphone down the street. I'll call the cab company." "You're giving me your last dollar after I just offered you hundreds. You need to get home safe more than I need food tonight. Come on." Winter helped Maverick to the payphone 6 blocks away, used her last dollar to call a cab company, and waited with him until the car arrived. She returned his wallet minus the hundreds he'd tried to give her. She'd left those in his wallet where they belonged. "Sterling Mansion in Parkwood Heights," she told the cab driver. "He's drunk, but not violent, just grieving. Get him home safe." "Wait," Maverick said as the cab door started to close. "Your name again?" "Winter Ashford, under the overpass on Grant Street, in case you want your dollar back tomorrow." The cab drove away, and Winter walked back to her tent with nothing. No food, no money, no prospects. But somehow she felt better than she had in months. She'd helped someone, made a difference, however small. She didn't expect to ever see Maverick Sterling again. Winter woke to someone calling her name. Disoriented, she usually woke to traffic noise and the cold. She emerged from her tent to find a man in a chauffeur's uniform standing there with a woman in an expensive coat. "Winter Ashford?" the woman asked. "Yes? My name is Victoria Chen, head of security for Sterling Tech. Mr. Sterling has sent me to collect you. He'd like to speak with you about last night." "I don't have his dollar, if that's what this is about. I spent it on the phone call." "This isn't about the dollar. Please, if you'd come with us. Mr. Sterling has requested your presence at his home." "Why would a billionaire CEO want to see me?" "He didn't say, but Miss Ashford, he was quite insistent, and between you and me, he's not someone you want to refuse." Winter looked at her tent, at the overpass that had been her home for 6 months, at the nothing she had to lose. "But I'm not dressed for visiting a mansion." Mr. Sterling anticipated that. "We'll stop by a department store on the way." An hour later, after the strangest shopping experience of her life, Victoria had given her a credit card with no limit and instructions to buy whatever makes you feel human again. Winter stood in front of Maverick Sterling's mansion. It wasn't just big, it was obscene. A modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably cost more to maintain than Winter had earned in a year. Victoria led her inside, through rooms that looked like magazine spreads, to a study where Maverick sat behind a massive desk. He looked different from last night. Sober, composed, wearing a fresh suit that probably cost more than a car. But his eyes were the same, devastated. "Winter Ashford," he said, standing. "You came. Your security chief is persuasive, and honestly, I was curious. About why I'd tracked down a homeless woman who spent her last dollar on me." "That, yes." Maverick moved from behind the desk, gesturing for her to sit on the leather couch. He sat across from her, studying her face. "I woke up this morning in my bed with no memory of how I got here. Found my wallet on my nightstand with all the cash still inside, and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. It said, 'You were drunk and grieving. You needed to get home safe. The woman who helped you was Winter Ashford, Grant Street Overpass. She gave you her last dollar for cab fare. She deserves better than living in a tent. A concerned citizen.' I didn't write that note. I know, the cab driver did. He was so moved by what you did that he took the time to write it and leave it with my wallet. Winter, do you understand what you did last night? I helped someone get home safely. You gave your last dollar to a stranger. Not just any dollar, your last dollar. The difference between eating and not eating. And you gave it to me, a man who just tried to hand you hundreds. Why? Because you needed it more in that moment, and because taking money from someone who's drunk and grieving felt like taking advantage. Most people would have taken the money and run. I'm not most people, though lately I wish I was. Most people aren't living in tents. Maverick leaned forward. Tell me how you ended up homeless. The whole story. So Winter did. About losing her graphic design job when the company downsized. About her mother's cancer diagnosis and the medical bills that ate her savings. About choosing to care for her mother in her final months instead of looking for new work. About her mother dying 3 weeks after being evicted. About the spiral into homelessness, the shame and fear, the constant struggle to survive. I had a good life once, Winter finished. Education, career, apartment, future. Lost it all in 6 months. And now I'm that person you walk past without seeing, invisible, forgotten. You're not invisible, Maverick said quietly. Last night you were the only person who saw me, really saw me. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a man who'd lost his sister and couldn't stop crying. Winter, you gave me dignity when I'd lost everything else. I want to repay that. You don't have to. I want to, which is why I'm offering you a job. Graphic designer at Sterling Tech, $60,000 a year to start. You'd work in our marketing division, reporting to the creative director. I looked up your portfolio online. You're talented. This isn't charity. This is me recognizing ability and wanting to hire it. Winter stared at him. You're offering me a job because I gave you $1? I'm offering you a job because you're exactly the kind of person I want in my company. Someone with integrity, compassion, and the courage to do the right thing, even when it costs them everything. The dollar just proved what I needed to know about your character. Maverick, I've been homeless for 6 months. I'm dirty, probably smell despite the shower Victoria let me take, and I'm wearing borrowed clothes. Why would you trust me with a job? Because character doesn't wash away with soap. Because talent doesn't disappear because you're living in a tent. And because, Winter, you reminded me last night that good people exist. My sister spent her life believing in people's potential. Hiring you honors her memory, so do you accept? I accept, but Maverick, I need to be honest. I don't have a place to live, no address for paperwork, no way to look professional for work. That's handled. You'll stay here until you're back on your feet. Guest suite, full access to the house. Once you get your first few paychecks, you can find your own place. But Winter, you're not going back to that overpass. Consider this part of your employment package, housing until you're stable. You're inviting a homeless stranger to live in your mansion. I'm inviting the woman who gave me her last dollar to have a safe place to sleep while she rebuilds her life. There's a difference. Winter felt tears threatening. Why are you doing this, really? Maverick was quiet for a long moment. Because last night I wanted to die. I'd lost my sister, the only family I had. I was so drunk I couldn't remember my own address. And you appeared like proof that kindness still exists, that not everything is transactional, that people can still choose compassion over self-interest. Winter, you saved my life by reminding me it was worth living. This is me returning the favor. By giving me a job and a place to live. By giving you a chance. The same chance my sister would have insisted I give you. The chance you deserve, but circumstances have denied you. So yes, job, housing, and a fresh start. Do we have a deal? Winter looked around the study at this impossible situation, at the billionaire CEO who'd tracked her down because she'd spent her last dollar on him. We have a deal. But Maverick, I'm paying you back. For the clothes, for the housing, for everything. Once I'm stable, I'm repaying every penny. Just like you tried to refuse my money last night. Winter, you're consistent. I respect that. Now come on. Let me show you to your room. You look exhausted. The guest suite was larger than Winter's entire previous apartment. Massive bed, private bathroom, a view of manicured gardens. Winter stood in the middle of it, overwhelmed. This is too much, she whispered. This is the beginning, Maverick corrected, standing in the doorway. Winter, you gave me your last dollar when you had every reason to keep it. I'm giving you a room and a job we're not even close to even yet. Over the next 3 months, Winter rebuilt her life. She excelled at Sterling Tech, her designs winning praise from the creative director and clients. She saved her paychecks, planning to move out once she had enough for first and last month's rent somewhere modest. But something else was developing alongside her professional success. A connection with Maverick that neither of them had expected. It started with shared dinners in his massive house, both of them working late, ordering takeout, talking about projects and life. Then morning coffee in the kitchen before work, then weekend conversations that stretched for hours. "I'm falling for you," Maverick admitted one evening, 3 months after bringing her to his mansion. They were in his study, ostensibly working but really just enjoying each other's company. "And I know that's inappropriate. You work for me, you live in my house, the power dynamic is all wrong. But Winter, I can't help it. You're the first real thing in my life in years." "I'm falling for you too," Winter admitted. "And yes, the power dynamic is wrong. I'm your employee living in your house because I was homeless. This could blow up spectacularly." "Then let's address the power dynamic. You don't work for me anymore. Effective immediately, you report to the creative director, not me. I'm recusing myself from any decisions about your employment. And Winter, you're not in this house because you're homeless. You're here because I want you here. Because coming home to you makes this place feel less empty. Because you've become important to me. What if this doesn't work? What if we try and it crashes? Then we deal with it like adults. But Winter, what if it does work? What if the woman who gave me her last dollar is actually the person I've been looking for? What if this impossible situation is exactly what we both need? I'm scared. I've lost everything once already. If I lose you too, you won't lose me. Winter, I'm not your employer or your benefactor anymore. I'm just a man who's falling in love with a woman who reminded him that good people exist. Can that be enough?" "Yes," Winter whispered. "That can be enough." They dated carefully, navigating the complicated situation. Winter moved out of the mansion into her own apartment, modest but hers, to remove the dependency. They went on real dates, built a relationship based on choice rather than circumstance. "You know what I love about you?" Maverick asked 6 months into dating. They were at her small apartment, so different from his mansion but somehow more comfortable, eating pizza on her second-hand couch. "What?" "You still live like someone who remembers being homeless. You save every penny, you shop at thrift stores, you never take anything for granted. Winter, you could afford better. Your salary is good. I've offered to help financially. But you choose this independence, this humility. Why? Because I never want to forget what it feels like to have nothing. Never want to become the kind of person who walks past suffering without seeing it. Maverick, being homeless, taught me what matters. And it's not mansions or expensive clothes. It's connection, kindness, dignity. I don't want to lose that by getting comfortable. You're extraordinary. You know that? I'm just someone who gave away her last dollar because someone else needed it more. That's not extraordinary. That's just being human. It's both. Winter, I want to ask you something." "What?" Maverick knelt on her worn carpet, pulled out a ring. Simple, beautiful, nothing ostentatious, and looked up at her with the same devastation she'd first seen under that overpass, now transformed into hope. "Winter Ashford, you gave me your last dollar and saved my life. You reminded me that kindness exists, that good people are real, that wealth means nothing without connection. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life trying to deserve the compassion you showed me when you had nothing and I had everything?" "Yes," Winter said through tears. "But Maverick, I'm keeping my apartment, and I'm still paying my own bills, and I'm donating half of whatever wealth comes from marrying you to homeless services. Deal?" "Deal. Though I'd have married you even if you demanded I give away everything I own. Winter, you're worth more than any fortune." Their wedding was small but meaningful. They got married at the homeless shelter where Winter had stayed before living in her tent. with a reception that fed every person staying there that night. "This is where you want to get married?" Maverick's business associates asked, horrified. "This is where people who've lost everything find hope," Winter replied. "Where better to start a marriage than a place that reminds us what actually matters?" During the ceremony, the shelter director gave a speech. "A year ago, Winter Ashford lived in a tent. She gave her last dollar to a stranger because he needed it more. Today, she's marrying that stranger, but she's still the same person, still volunteering here, still remembering where she came from, still choosing compassion over comfort. That's what love looks like. Not wealth or status, but choosing to see each other's humanity, even when the world says you're invisible." 2 years after giving away her last dollar, Winter stood with Maverick in the newly opened Winter's Haven, a homeless services center they'd funded together, offering not just shelter but job training, counseling, and hope. "Remember when I gave you that dollar?" Winter asked, watching residents receive help. "Best dollar I ever received. Changed my entire life." "Mine too." "Maverick, do you ever regret it? Tracking me down, changing everything?" "Never, Winter. You gave me your last dollar when you had every reason to keep it. You taught me that kindness matters more than wealth. That's a lesson worth any price. Though technically that dollar bought me a wife, a purpose, and a reason to use my wealth for something meaningful. Best investment return in history." "I should charge you interest." "Too late. I'm already all in." Because sometimes your last dollar is the beginning of everything. Sometimes giving away what little you have attracts everything you actually need. And sometimes the person crying under an overpass becomes the person you build a life with, not because of wealth or status, but because you chose to see their humanity when they'd lost sight of it themselves. And that's where our story ends today. What did you think? Did Winter and Maverick's story of $1 that changed 2 lives touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was. If you enjoyed this story, we have so many more waiting for you. Check out our playlist for more heartwarming romance tales that will make you believe in love all over again. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and remember, the best stories are the ones that remind us we all deserve our happily ever after. See you in the next story.